Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm 22 years old, and this story happened not long ago during fall break. It was when I came home after spending more than 2 years studying abroad. Oh, how good it was to be back. As soon as I walked in, the smell of my childhood home embraced me, and every detail seemed like a little piece of a dream that I missed living. But before we start, I want you to make sure you've subscribed to our channel so you don't miss any of our love and romance stories. Take advantage and click like so our videos deliver more and more, and now let's continue the story. That's when he showed up. Jason, my younger brother. We've always been very close. We grew up together, we shared secrets and mischief. But when I saw him that night, he was no longer the skinny, clumsy boy I remembered. No. Jason was now a man. Tall, strong, with broad shoulders that seemed sculpted. He had a presence that filled the room in a different way. When I hugged him, I felt the firm muscles in his back. My first thought was a mix of surprise and admiration. "Wow, you've really grown up," I said, laughing, but still a little in disbelief. But it wasn't just his physique that had changed. He exuded a warm, enveloping scent that seemed to linger in the air, as if it wanted to be noticed. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop watching him. Every deep laugh that came out of him seemed to echo in me, and that calm, confident look. It was as if I was meeting someone completely new, even though it was someone I'd known all my life. It was strange but fascinating at the same time. After hours of talking, laughing, and enjoying dinner with my mother's famous lasagna, which always made any family gathering special, I felt tiredness taking over me. The trip had been long, almost 18 hours of flights, layovers, and delays, and all I wanted was to relax. So, after a hot and invigorating shower, I put on a loose t-shirt and threw myself into my usual bed. The room was still the same, with that familiar and welcoming touch that only home has. As I stared at the ceiling, my mind wandered through the memories of the day, and my heart seemed to speed up a little, without me understanding exactly why. There I was, finally alone, enveloped by the silence and peace of my room. It was a rare moment, just mine, where I could close my eyes and reconnect with myself in a way I hadn't done in a long time. I felt the layers of tension that life outside of home had accumulated in me begin to unravel. It was like rediscovering a part of myself that had been forgotten. But then, something unexpected happened. The image of Jason appeared in my mind, as if it had been painted there by an invisible artist. At first, I tried to push the thought away. After all, he was just my brother. Wasn't he? However, the more I tried to avoid it, the more he took shape. I found myself captured by those details that I had noticed earlier. His deep voice, the confident way he walked, that smile that seemed to know more than he let on. My imagination began to play tricks on me, conjuring up scenarios I would never have thought of before. It was a mix of curiosity and something deeper, more instinctive. I gave in to the fantasy for a brief moment until reality came back like a storm. The bedroom door suddenly opened. "Tiffany!" Jason shouted, calling me out. I froze. My face began to burn with embarrassment, and my heart was beating so hard I could barely hear anything else. For a moment, everything around me seemed to stop. He was standing in the doorway, his eyes wide, as surprised as I was. "What are you doing?" he asked, confusion evident in his voice. "Jason, you can't just barge in like that," I yelled, trying to hide my embarrassment. "I didn't know. You never lock the door," he replied, visibly flustered, scratching the back of his neck as if he didn't know where to put his hands. "Get out of here!" I yelled, trying to sound firm, although my voice shook. He took a step back, still a little stunned, but then, to my surprise and irritation, he smiled. "Maybe you should put a sign on the door," he said, before calmly closing it and walking down the stairs, laughing softly, as if this were the most amusing thing in the world. I stood there, motionless, my mind spinning and my face burning with humiliation. My heart was still racing, but now for different reasons. There was something about the way he looked at me before he left, something that felt different, almost indescribable. It was as if, for a brief moment, he had seen something in me that I didn't even fully understand, something vulnerable, but real. Although I was mortified, that feeling stayed with me. It was impossible to ignore. Something inside me had changed, and I knew that somehow nothing would ever be quite the same again. That night, something shifted inside me. It was as if a small flame had been lit, pushing me to act without so much fear or doubt. I waited patiently until silence filled the house, the kind of silence where even the smallest sound seems to echo. I knew what I wanted to do, but still, every step felt like a challenge. Carefully, I walked down the hallway to Jason's room. The door was just ajar, letting a beam of dim light illuminate part of the space. Inside, he lay, breathing calmly, lost in a deep sleep. For a moment, I just watched, feeling my heart beat faster. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and quietly entered. I approached slowly, almost as if I didn't want to disturb the peace of the moment, and lay down next to him on the bed. The space around us seemed charged with something indescribable. Maybe it was a mix of nervousness and anticipation. It was then that he moved. Jason turned his face, and his eyes slowly opened. For a moment, they seemed confused, as if they didn't understand what they were seeing. But recognition soon came, and with it, evident surprise. "Tiffany?" His voice sounded hoarse, still half laden with sleep, as he tried to process the scene. "What are you doing here?" For a moment, I remained quiet, letting the silence speak for me. I didn't know exactly what to say, but I decided to let my gestures guide the situation. With a careful touch, I took his hand and let it rest on my waist, calmly, almost casually. Then, with a slight smile, I joked, "It's your fault. You came into my room without warning." He paused for a moment, as if trying to understand what I meant. Soon, I saw him relax, allowing the atmosphere around us to lighten. His hand remained still for a moment, but then he moved it slightly, as if trying to reconnect with the moment. The atmosphere seemed charged with something special, but difficult to explain. It was as if we were understanding each other without needing words, letting the silence and small gestures speak for us. There was no rush, just a simple exchange full of curiosity. What followed were moments full of genuine moments, a balance between surprise and understanding, as we learned more about how to deal with this new connection. Everything seemed natural and, at the same time, full of meaning, as if time had slowed down just for us. Now, thinking about everything that happened, I ask myself, did I act in the right way? Did I do something wrong? Sometimes the decisions we make in the heat of the moment leave us with doubts later. What do you think? Leave your opinion in the comments. Here is the continuation of the story, now with a touch of mystery. That night, something else was present besides the two of us. It was a feeling that I only realized much later, as if the silence around us was not as absolute as I thought. After a while, I left Jason's room. My heart was still beating fast, not only because of the intensity of the moment, but also because of a feeling that I could not explain. It was as if something or someone was watching. The hallway was dark, lit only by the dim light of a distant lamp, and the silence seemed greater than it should have been. Every step I took seemed to echo, even if I tried to walk on tiptoe. When I got to my room, I closed the door slowly, almost without making a sound. I leaned my back against it, trying to calm my breathing. It was then that I realized the door was not completely closed. A small space let the light from the hallway in, and I had the distinct sensation that something had moved outside. A figure? Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. I lay down on the bed, but sleep would not come. I stared at the ceiling, every noise in the house seeming louder than usual. It wasn't unusual to hear the creaking of floorboards or the sound of wind hitting the window, but tonight those sounds seemed different, more intentional somehow. The next morning, when I went downstairs for breakfast, I realized something was off. The look in the eyes of one of the other residents of the house, someone I couldn't look directly at, seemed filled with something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't judgmental, but it wasn't ordinary curiosity either. It was as if he knew. "How was your night?" he asked casually, a slight smile on his lips. His tone seemed innocent, but there was something there, something that made me swallow hard before answering. "Quiet," I murmured, trying to sound natural. But as I answered, I noticed his gaze. Direct, almost challenging, as if he expected more than a simple answer. During breakfast, I noticed that he was silent, but his eyes followed me, attentive to my every move. It was as if he was waiting for me to make some mistake, some clue that would confirm what I had perhaps seen or heard that night. And that's when I realized. The secret that I believed was only ours was no longer so safe. Someone knew, or at least I suspected. Now, it wasn't just the weight of what had happened that was following me, but the constant doubt. Who else knew, and what could they do with it? If you were hooked on this story and want to dive even deeper into forbidden romances full of emotion, be sure to click on the video that's appearing here on the screen. There you'll find another intense story, full of mysteries and feelings that will move you. Check it out and tell me in the comments what you thought. See you in the next video.